Today I'm going to show you 2 ways to make fluffy, soft, buttery dinner rolls. The first way is my super easy no-fail dinner rolls, and the second is homemade from scratch. Both are delicious and oh so good. Here we go. So to start, I'm working on my no-fail super easy dinner rolls. I'm working with frozen yeast dinner roll dough that's already made from the store. There are several brands you can purchase. This one's store brand, but there's also Rhodes that works. In a bowl, I'm adding some cooking oil and I'm just going to spread that around. And what I'm going to do is place 9 rolls. I'm just going to show you a small batch because with 9 of these frozen dough balls, you can make 6 cloverleaf rolls, which look perfect for holiday dinners. It's just kind of like this showstopper semi-homemade roll. So 9 going in the bowl. As you can hear, they are frozen. And I'm going to place, trust me, this is clean. I know you're looking at that like, wow, that kitchen towel. It's clean. It just gets really used in my kitchen. So I thawed these over the course of an hour. Now I don't want them to proof or rise because what I'm going to do next to make these cloverleaf dinner rolls is I'm going to cut these into halves. And I'm just going to place these on my work area or my counter and just take a knife and just cut it right in half. And the dough is still kind of cold, but it's workable. So once you're done cutting all of these in half, then you're going to take 3 of them and place it into a muffin pan, right into the muffin cup area here. You could also just put it in there like that, or you can make them more uniform and just roll each piece out into a circular piece of dough. And 3 go in a muffin cup. And that's as easy as that gets when it comes to working with the dough. Now what you're up against is waiting. So once these are done, just like this, I'm going to place them in a non-drafty area and let the dough proof and rise for about an hour and a half. It depends on your kitchen temperature. So at this point, they have definitely doubled in size and I can't wait to bake them. Look how wonderful they look, and they're not even baked. But you see how fluffy they already look. So what I'm going to do, because I want these to be hot and buttery, I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit first. And now I'm going to take, this is around 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and I'm going to gently and lightly spread butter on the exterior of this dough. Now I don't want it to like kind of deflate, so you got to do this carefully, but this is just going to give you this beautiful deep golden brown tops. And just, oh, they're perfect. And it's so easy to do this. So now what I'm going to do is bake this in a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 to 20 minutes. So it has not been quite 20 minutes, around 18 minutes in my oven. And these are done. And my kitchen smells amazing. Oh my gosh, these are perfect. So now what I'm going to do is carefully, first of all, put them down. I don't want to burn myself. And then you take some more of that melted butter and you spread it on top of the golden brown deliciousness of these rolls. And then when you serve them, no one is the wiser. They taste just like soft, buttery, homemade, from scratch dinner rolls. And I want to show you what these look like. When you open these up or take a bite, it's just heaven in your mouth. So good. So next up, I'm showing you my homemade from scratch dinner rolls. So first, I'm going to start with 12 fluid ounces of evaporated milk. You could use whole milk. And what I'm going to do is pour that right into my measuring cup, and I'm going to warm this in the microwave for 45 seconds to a minute. Essentially, you want this to be a warm temp of 105 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. I added 1 teaspoon of sugar to the milk and mixed it up, and now I'm going to add 2½ teaspoons of active dry yeast right into the warm milk. So I'm going to sprinkle this in, and what you're doing is you want to let it set and basically come to life. You want it to activate. It takes around 5 to 10 minutes. And eventually this is what it ends up doing. You'll start to see air bubbles kind of form and it starts to foam. That lets you know that you're working with live active yeast, which will yield a good yeast dough. And if it does not start getting foamy and bubbly, then you're not working with good yeast. It's probably expired. Okay, so next I'm working in a large bowl and I'm going to add my bread flour. All-purpose flour works too, but the bread flour has a higher content of gluten, and it just really gives you that dinner roll texture that you're looking for. I'm just sort of going to fluff it up, and now what I'm going to do is start adding dry milk. Essentially with all this milk, you're working with kind of like a milk yeast dough. Okay, going in. Now I'm going to add my sugar. Again, this is not going to make this dough ultra sweet. It just works. Now I'm going with salt, and next I'm going to move that to the side, and I'm going to be adding 1 large egg. But first I'm going to crack it into a bowl and beat it and scramble it a bit before adding it into the dough. And you've probably noticed this is in my old kitchen, so I am reworking an older video that's out there. And be sure to check the description below for the ingredients and measurements. Also, I will be linking other recipe videos that you might like, and to my new Simply Mama Cooks page that I had to start on Facebook. So check for that link and description, and show me some love over there. Okay, egg going in. Now I'm going to add cooking oil. Here I'm going to pour in that milk yeast mixture. And what I'm going to do is just start mixing this. I'm using like a silicone little spatula spoon thing here. A Dutch whisk works, chopsticks, just something that's, not going to get too gloopy and gloppy when you mix it. And this is a sticky dough, so I do recommend mixing it the best that you can. And then before you start kneading it, let it set for 15 minutes. Now, if you're working with a stand mixer, you can just pour it all in there and let the stand mixer do all the work of kneading and mixing and all that good stuff. Okay, so this next part I did by hand, but essentially you could also toss this into the dough and mix it with your silicone spoon or Dutch whisk. But what I'm using here is unsalted butter. I'm going to put some on my mat. Like I said, this is kind of sticky, so doing that kind of helps things stay together. But what I'm going to do is work in and fold the butter into the dough. Now, an easier version of this would be just to toss everything in the bowl, mix it, let it set, and then get to kneading, whether you're using your hands or your stand mixer. But, I just like working with my clean hands. But definitely a stand mixer works. So I'm scraping this onto my Silpat, and I'm going to work in that butter. Okay, so that took all of like 5 minutes to work in. So instead of kneading it at this point, because it is kind of sticky, I'm going to let it set for about 15 minutes. And that'll make it a lot easier to work with. I don't want to overflour my work surface, because if you add too much flour back into the dough, you're kind of defeating the purpose to having a really soft and tender dough. So let it set for 15 minutes before kneading. It has been 15 minutes, so I'm going to lightly flour my work surface. And I'm going to turn the dough out onto my lightly floured work surface. And now I'm going to use my clean hands and knead. Now, kneading this with your hands, it is a labor of love. Like I said, feel free to use your stand mixer on like a medium speed to knead it. But essentially what you're going to want to do is knead the dough so that it'll pass the window test, and I'll show you. You'll knead the dough until it starts to get kind of smoother on the surface, but this is what you want to test it for. When you grab some of the dough and stretch it, that it kind of stretches and gets thin. But see how mine broke? That means it's not ready yet, so you got to keep kneading. And eventually, it starts to get stretchy, soft, and tender, and now I can pull it without the dough breaking, and I can see the shadows of my fingers through the dough. That is called the window pane test. This is great. So now what I'm going to do is roll the dough into just a big dough ball, and then you're going to let it rest back into the bowl and let it proof until it doubles in size. And I'm just going to oil the bowl. You just want to make sure nothing gets gloopy and sticky to the bowl, so just a light coating. And now cover it loosely. It looks like I'm covering it really tight here, but you do want some air. You want the dough to breathe. So I'm going to put this in a non-drafty place. The best place is an oven, not on, with the oven light on only. And you want to allow it to proof for an hour or until it doubles in size. It really depends on the temperature of your kitchen or space. I added some hot water into the oven. That'll just create a nice, warm, non-drafty area. And here we are, doubled in size. The dough smells amazing. It's gonna just work so perfectly for these homemade dinner rolls. So when I did this video, I divided the dough. Essentially, you want to weigh the entire dough and then divide it evenly, and you want to weigh each dough ball. I couldn't tell you how much each dough ball weighed. Lightly flour your work surface, and you will punch out all the air from the dough. That's kind of like my favorite part. So yeah, just turn it out into your work surface. I kind of like to just pull it out and then kind of punch it down and work with it. And like I said, you'll want to punch it out. I'm going to use a rolling pin to kind of work the dough, spread it out, fold it in on itself like a book. That does create layers into your dough, and it just really helps the texture of the dough. So again, not too much flour, fold it like a book. And then what I'm going to do is just take a rolling pin, flatten it out. You can do this all by hand, by the way, but a rolling pin does help. By the way, if you feel like the dough is too tough to work with, feel free to just kind of cover it with cling film and let it rest for 15 minutes and then start working with it again. If you're working with bread flour, it does tend to toughen up a bit when you're working all of that gluten in the dough. So again, folding, pressing out, adding texture and just airiness to the dough. So at this point, I am going to divide the dough and measure it or weigh it out. I suggest you weigh the entire dough ball and then divide it evenly. I did this video years ago, by the way, and I don't remember how much each dough ball weighed. I will put the link to the original video in the description below, but like I said, weighing ingredients will yield a more accurate recipe. So I will be putting weighed measurements in the description to help you out, especially when you're baking like homemade things. I don't always do that. I do eyeball a lot of things that I've made over the years that I just know how to do in my kitchen. But when it does come to like bread dough, you kind of have to measure and weigh things. Okay, so you'll notice I'm rolling out each dough ball, and I kind of roll it out in a rectangular flattened shape, and then again fold it like a book, roll it out, pinch it, and just kind of keep it together. You could just do a circular dough ball. That also works for a dinner roll. It really is up to you. Or you could do the clover dinner rolls and do like 3 dough balls in one. It all works. So I'm going to let this proof again. It's in my baking pan here. It's a 9x13 baking pan with parchment paper, and you let it proof and double in size again. My rolls have proofed and doubled in size, so what I'm going to do is just brush on an egg wash. 1 large egg, I've beat it into a bowl, and now I'm just going to gently spread it on the tops of each dough ball. Essentially, you could use heavy cream, whole milk. You can butter it just like I did the other rolls that I created, but I'm going with an egg wash because it does give it this like golden brown sheen to the tops. But it really is up to you and what you prefer. So after brushing the egg wash, I am going to pop this into my preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to bake this for about 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, your homemade from scratch, buttery, soft, fluffy dinner rolls are done. And it really is helpful when you bake this type of roll with parchment paper in the baking pan, because then you just kind of grab the parchment paper and you can carefully remove it from the baking pan, just like I'm doing now. And you can put it on a cooling rack because you don't want the bottoms to sweat as they cool, because then it'll kind of sog up. So here we go. Careful, right onto my cooling rack here. The parchment paper does come in handy. And you're done. You can serve these hot. You can let them set. But I'm going to break into one of these. I really want to show you how soft and airy and fluffy these come out. Look at that. Just tender milk yeast dinner rolls. So good. Fluffy, soft. Ah, perfect. So I hope you give these recipes a try. I hope you like them, and thanks for watching.